Well, welcome back to our wonderful winter wonderland, all you witches and warlocks. Ever so kind of you to join me again today in my ever-growing quest to create an undead army, and kingdom at that. Speaking of which, our undead horde is hard at work, turning chunk into block, that way we can build up some wonderful walls here shortly. Before that though, we have a few things to take care of. For example, our deserter going by the name of Osprey from the Eternal Flame, who came here at the end of last episode, is sleeping out in the snow. Well, I prefer not to have to raise him from the dead, so we would give him a nice little corner to sleep in the smithy. As he's warming up his tender bits and getting some much needed shut-eye, we also seem to have a visitor. By the looks of her, I almost thought that a corpse had raised itself from the dead to serve me, but as it turned out once we spoke with her, she was apparently part of a cult, one in which she was tortured and horribly scarred. A cult that apparently worshipped things that were much darker than necromancy. And the long, cumbersome nights of an eternal winter, well, we do have a soft spot for broken things here, so she can be part of our community. Besides, she's been nothing but honest with us thus far, or so it seems. Honesty is the best policy. If we find out she's lying about something, well, you know what we'll do. It does seem that she's basically completely useless at most things, though, which is a little bit of a shame. However, just because she can't see, that doesn't mean she can't read. Okay, so maybe it does, but she can still work on some research and try to get her intellectual skill up, making her much better, since it's currently at a 1. It definitely can't get any lower, that's for sure. Perhaps she can even be the assistant to Osprey, who has an actual, genuinely incredible intellectual skill, and is going to be our top researcher. As such, Osprey is going to become a permanent part of our community here. It's not like he could go anywhere else anyway. Being a deserter of the Eternal Flame, he would basically be lynched in any other community. All that being said, he needs a proper home to live in, and we are, of course, building him one, but since we believe in the old motto of live by your work, we are also going to be putting his research table in there so he can enjoy his studies before bed and literally right after he wakes up. Don't get me wrong, I'm not unreasonable. Some nights I would even sneak into his house and help him complete his studies. We just have a lot to do and a lot to finish. Speaking of which, we're about to completely finish up all of our harvesting of ancient wagons and ancient footmen for their resources of wood and bones. We're going to need to find another solution pretty soon. At least in terms of fuel. Bones we could do without, but if we don't have some way to fuel our torches and fireplaces, we'll literally freeze to death. That's something we'll figure out in the future though. As for now, it would appear that Volkov, the runaway cultist who recently joined us, is throwing a party to celebrate getting to join us. How quaint. A bit unusual to throw a party for yourself like this. Almost makes one wonder why she's trying to get us all in a good mood, but nevertheless we'll have fun. As we were partying, we were using our bear and husky, the undead ones that is, to do a bit of hunting, and they were doing not so good. To be fair to them though, the Mega Sloth is a pretty powerful creature, and they just needed a little bit of assistance. After that, it was good to butcher and for us to eat. Not to worry, my furry friends, we won't be consuming your corpses anytime soon, nor will we be replacing you. Well, at least not the bear. That kind of raw power's hard to come by. As for the Mega Sloth, enjoy the rest of your days, or what's left of them, decorating Osprey's humble abode. You can keep him company while he researches. As we were decorating our walls, we got some pretty bad news. Turns out, Volkov is a complete and utter liar, as she has been hiding the fact that her organs are failing, at an accelerated rate, no less, both of her lungs and her kidney, many things that, as you could probably guess, are crucial for survival. We also don't have any way to cure this. Well, we did have some information from a nearby human house about where we could get the potion of Luciferium, which may have the potential to heal these organs slowly over time, but it'll almost definitely result in some type of terrible addiction, and then there's also no telling what's there. There's just so much, and all this just to say that Volkov lied to us. big mistake. Ah, there she is. Look who's finally awake. Volkov, you silly little goober. You should have never lied to us. Sorry about having to kill you, but welcome back. Back to the land of the living as my eternal undead servant. Ironically, she is actually a much better undead servant than she was as a living person, because after resurrection, not only does she regain her ability to see somehow through the powers of necromancy, but it also looks like her stats have been slightly increased. I have no idea. I'm not one to look a gift muffalo in the mouth, though, if you know what I'm saying. And after her resurrection, we actually finished up our research into smithing. Perfect, because we've been saving up just enough materials to create a proper blacksmith shop with all the tools and amenity a proper smith could ever need. An anvil, some bellows, and a great big furnace. We are going to be making a lot of equipment, as well as many other metallic things here, I'm sure of it. The most interesting part about this, though, we already have an amazing smith. Since Volkov's stats were increased after being resurrected, and she can finally see to hit a hot piece of steel, she is now our blacksmith. Funny how things work out. For the time being, we're going to have her smelt plenty of iron ore down into ingots. It'll be quite a while before we can research alloys to make some proper hardy steel, so this is what we'll be using for weapons and armor. We do currently have much more pressing research priorities at this time, though, like rustic storage. Currently, things are a bit cluttered and messy, and it's really impeding our progress into expanding, so we need to take care of that. But don't hold your breath, baby, because it looks like we're actually being attacked by a group of impids from the Clade of Kazath. A fair-sized group of them as well, and they're also pretty well equipped. They've even brought along their very own fire mage. This should be interesting. Since we outnumber them by a decent bit, we decided to come at them full force from the front. Needless to say, this wasn't exactly my best strategy. A ginormous fireball from their mage damn near put a stop to our plans real quick. But thanks to Moincow and her amazing magical abilities, we would end up getting the upper hand. It seems that my necromancy has corrupted her light powers, giving her damn near demonic abilities. Which is amazing for us, as we could kill off most of these imps without a worry in the world. Some of them would begin to flee, those who survived, that is. But as for the others, I'm afraid they weren't so lucky. All except for the fire mage, who we were lucky enough that she had survived, so we started tending to her wounds, and once we were ensured that she wasn't going to bleed to death out here, we would carry her back to the blacksmith shop so that we could start trying to recruit her. We prefer to keep her alive, as we saw when we accidentally killed Moincow. If we were to kill her and resurrect her, her powers would be dampened a bit. And believe you me, when you have an eternal winter, somebody that can conjure fire is mighty useful. Speaking of mighty useful, before we go about consuming these corpses, we're going to also strip them of all of their armor and other gear, because, well, that's going to be mighty useful. I was careful to move Humps and resurrect him before I accidentally consumed him. As our first undead, I want to keep him forever and ever. I've been pondering on the idea of maybe making him the general of our undead army. Let me know what you think about that. I also resurrected one of these impid knights, as his fighting prowess was out of this world, and I consumed the other corpses, including one of our unnamed undead we got last episode from around the monolith, I think. Not really anyone important. It's odd that we would get so much useful gear from the impids, because up until recent years, they weren't even a proper house. They were just tribespeople who were barely smithing any type of armor on their campfires. Just goes to show you, you can really find a diamond in the rough sometimes, and as you can see, our undead are finally getting some proper weapons and armor. This will help us out significantly in the very near future. Just a real shame that I couldn't equip any of these new weapons and armor onto our undead animals as they went on a massive hunt for an entire muffalo herd. It took them all night, but by morning I would arrive, consume all the corpses, and bring our husky back to life. I only mention this because it was a major increase to my necrotic energy, which I would need to raise undead and to increase my capacity overall. We also finished up our research into rustic storage, and the first place that we're going to begin implementing this is inside of our blacksmith shop with a nice big barrel of iron ore and some coal. We need to start mining some coal, as it's going to be a great alternative fuel source to wood, which we also use for other things. Speaking of which, we're going to start working on the research into basic cooking so we can start looking into other alternative ways of cooking that's going to help us out with not wasting materials and food. Between all this hunting and researching and fighting and killing, we would also make time to work on a great big wall to our east. This is going to be the very beginning of our defensive perimeter around what is hopefully going to be our undead city at some point. Walls are great for keeping people out and also for keeping us safe inside. Every great house and kingdom has them, so building our own is going to give us the foresight and knowledge of maybe even how to destroy other peoples efficiently and effectively. We finished up that basic cooking research, and now we're going to start working on stews during this time, which isn't going to take us very long at all. Something much tastier than stew, though, are the souls of a bunch of beavers that we killed, increasing my necrotic energy by a lot. With power like this, we might be able to resurrect a great big beast like a dragon or a troll. Hello there. This ancient fellow has an insane healing ability and strength that is absolutely off the charts. I had to have him for my undead armada. Naturally, the only course of action here was for all of my minions to gather around and start taking turns stabbing him. He did really have an incredible healing ability, though, because he was healing from these wounds as we were chopping into his flesh. After a while, though, all these beatings and Moinkao's magical prowess were enough to subdue him. And I was finally ready to welcome him into our ranks. As the great beast lay there on the snowy ground, I used my powers to resurrect him. But he began to attack me. Highly unusual. My theory is that the troll's healing ability seems to repair the damage done to its brain during the fight, causing it to go mad and try to attack us. Then it collapses in a rage and dies. I'm not exactly sure as to why, but perhaps my necromancy skills are not yet powerful enough for such a beast. Truly a shame, but at least we could steal his soul, making us even more powerful, now giving us the ability to expand our necrotic capacity. Strangely though, this didn't increase how many undead I can control, and then I realized that we actually need to go about studying the ways of necromancy to do that. I know, it seems very simple when you put it like that, but here's the problem. To go about researching the deeper learnings of necromancy, we need to acquire a green crystal that we can study. To go about making a green crystal, you have to have the research unlocked. It looks like we're going to have to find one somewhere else. We did end up finishing that research into stews, and I know this is boring, but the reason I did this is so that we could make bone soup. Since we're hunting animals, we're really not getting to use all of their body parts, which is quite wasteful, and that doesn't seem like something a necromancer would do, now does it? And also, if we start running out of food, bones would be great to keep us nourished. You thought I was becoming some type of undead chef soup kitchen? Hell no, I was just prepping for the worst. Now then, by this point, we've acquired a decent bit of riches and jewelry like emeralds, rubies, and chalices during our little excursions with people like the Impids. These would be the type of items I think people would be interested in trading for that green crystal that we need. So we would set out on a trade caravan. We traded things to the wood elves, and we kept our secrets close to our chests this time around, but they didn't have a green crystal. We began moving to the northwest, where we started trading with House Amboys. A lot of these human houses are a little bit racist towards elves, and they don't really care for our kind, but they are an enemy of the flame, and thus I suppose we can be neutral for now. Even so, though, they too did not have the crystal we were searching for. They did, however, have a heat shield fire spell that we were interested in purchasing. In the meantime, back home, now that we've got all that food research out of the way, we're going to start researching something actually important known as heavy bridges. The reason for this, as you might have noticed, there's a lot of thin ice around us, and we can't exactly build our walls atop that because it could sink in at any moment, and so we need bridges to build atop it. A few days later, our trade caravan would finally arrive back home, perfect timing as well, as we have just recently recruited the fire mage from the Impids. Oh, joyous days. Add her to the ever-growing list of bad bitchin' witches that we have. A baddie necromancer, a damn powerful Impid lady fire mage, and the corpse of one of the greatest bright mages who ever lived? Although she is much weaker now because, again, she's dead. I digress. We wasted absolutely no time allowing our new magical compadre to learn that heat shield spell. This would be cast in a large area around her, meaning that if we have all of our soldiers around her, all of them will get a major heat resistance. This is perfect because fighting people like the Impids, we can no longer be lit on fire. Or if we can, we shouldn't burn to death. I think it's about damn time we start practicing smithing some armor, too. Sure, it's great getting all of our armor and weapons from people that we kill, but that might not always be a reliable way of doing things. We're starting off with some iron chainmail for Pluto, that way nobody can get an arrow into her decrepit, shriveled heart. We're also going to be using iron in other ways though as well, like in this grand dining and cooking hall that we're making. We'll be using iron for a large kettle to make stews and soups. Yeah, you really thought that that research earlier was wasted and useless and dog shit, didn't you? Joke's on you. Now we can make, now we can make soup. Jokes aside, this is going to be a great place for all of the folks who live in our community to dine with one another, get to know one another, and to become brothers and sisters in arms under a blood moon. Or something like that. Now, what if I were to tell you that we finished that research into heavy bridges? Would you believe me? Well, I hope so, because we did. And it is now thanks to these little engineering marvels that we can build some new buildings throughout the town without the fear of them slipping through the ice into the cold, frozen depths below. You could probably tell, but I'm going to be doing our towers in the center of the town and the streets, while we're going to have our buildings expanding outward from that. One of these two new buildings is going to be a butcher shop where we're going to be storing all of our meats from our mighty hunts during the spring and summer months. That way we can eat on those when things get even colder. We also have some embrasure walls at the back. That way the temperature outside will seep in, keeping everything nice, fresh, and frozen. As for the twin building right next door, we are actually going to be creating something of a greenhouse. Yes, I know, a strange concept given our environment, but we're not going to be growing just any plants here. We're going to be growing fiber corn. Wood is a hot commodity and also a rare resource around these parts, as we've already discussed many times. So, growing the fiber corn here, though it's not exactly worth it in terms of our fuel sources for heating the building, if we start swapping over to coal, I think it might just make it worth our while. At the very least, growing this fiber corn will help us offset the cost for growing it and slow down our depletion of wood in the region until we can get the kingdom off the ground to the point that we can start buying our own. Or perhaps when we set up some wood farms in other regions of the world, as I do have the Empire mod added to this mod list, and I plan on doing some pretty major expansion in the end game of our empire here, assuming we make it that far without the eternal flame stomping us out, no pun intended. And as I gaze out at our sprawling community here, I regret to inform you that this episode is actually being recorded before the first episode releases, meaning that I won't be naming it this episode either. But come next episode, I will have already searched through all your wonderful name suggestions for the community and our faction, And I will be doing some naming, so don't forget to comment on this video as well if you didn't on the last. I must say that by this point, I've realized hunting is a lot easier if I don't even bother going out after the animals because of the scarcity with the food in the region. They actually come to our little humble garden here to try to eat from it, meaning that we get twice the amount of food. Being the animals and the food that they didn't get to eat, you know what I'm saying. Stuffing our butchery with big, bloody steaks that will keep our guts full for the months to come. Winter bloom plants are fine in a soup, don't get me wrong, but it's kinda like eating lettuce versus eating a ribeye steak. Practically different worlds. But enough about food, for we have more important matters. You see, a visitor from the nearby wood elf colony has told us of an eternal flame outpost just to the northwest of here, and rumor has it that a very odd green gem had been collected during tax season this cycle. Sounds like we need to go collect our taxes, if you know what I'm saying, for I think we finally have a fighting force that can take on the flame directly on their own territory. No more hiding in the fog. It is our turn to strike. We would gather up resources and a couple days later head out onto the road. Thankfully, this outpost wasn't too hard to spot. Oh yeah, that's a tax collection settlement if I've ever seen one. Stone walls with torches, fires, and braziers filled with precious wood. Well, you have to give it to them. The flame sure knows how to make an impression. Their first line of defense were 2 guard towers at the entrance with riflemen and crossbowmen. If we can somehow manage to overwhelm them and make it through their gates, then we'll be dealing with the meat and potatoes of their forces that are guarding the main building. This would be where they conduct their affairs in the region, where their soldiers sleep, and more importantly, where they keep their treasures, just where we want to go. Before we would even set foot on the frozen cobbled path, we noticed a grisly scene at the entranceway. It would seem we're not the only ones who have been visiting the Eternal Flame recently. 2 dead elven warriors of the wood variety. Most likely scouts. I suppose this is how they knew about this place. Well, at least we admire their bravery, even if their kinfolk isn't around to. Bit of a side note here, but the elven kingdoms have been struggling in their wars with the flame. Many elves have defected on account of the queen being half-elf herself. Many of these elves fight for her now, which is exactly how in recent years she's been able to conquer many of their kingdoms so easily. It's not much of a choice for them, as the flame feeds them better and even offers them land for their military service. Never mind though, sorry about that, you had me talking politics. Without further ado, let's sneak up and set this candle ablaze. Quite literally thanks to our flaming Lady of the Ashes. You remember that fireball that almost killed Pluto, right? Time to put it to good use. We slung a massive fireball at the guard towers, killing one of the elven crossbowmen. With the other one discombobulated and freaking out, a nice lightning strike from Moincow would finish him off. Hearing this earth-shattering disturbance, the brunt of the forces would start coming our way. Musket balls and crossbow bolts whizzing by our heads as we worked to break down the gates, as well as breaking the bones and spirits of their guardsmen. Many of these guardsmen were in shock to see the undead corpse of Moincow wandering around, but even more shocked to see that she was trying to murder them. This shock wouldn't last for long, though, as her hellish abilities would literally rip them limb from limb. Well, if it isn't the tax collector herself. Personally, as someone starting my own kingdom, I see no problem with taxes, but I have a feeling the people will rejoice in your death. I know I'm feeling better already. It seemed like the coast was clear, and as we began adventuring and exploring throughout their barracks, it does indeed seem that we've killed all the guardsmen. Not a single one escaped our mighty justice. Nice digs. Maybe we'll take some of this furniture home with us. Out back in their storage depot, we also found some useful things, like plenty of meals that taste like the finer things in life. A good bit of silver, no doubt the taxes they've been collecting, with some delicious goat milk. But most importantly of all, a green crystal reverberating with power, as if it were calling my name. Looks like we finally got what we came here for. However, before we leave, I think we should tidy the place up a bit. What a waste it would be to let all these souls and flesh and bone freeze out here without being put to good use. Even our wood elfkin could join them in their higher purpose of becoming fuel for my internal fire. Don't worry, I didn't forget about that sweet-ass furniture nor all the weapons that we were about to leave behind. No, we would end up bringing everything that we could back home with us. Besides, it's not going to do them any good anymore, is it? We would eat their soups and porridge as we sharpen their blood-stained axes to be used against them. Perhaps I should send my regards to the Queen for equipping my undead with such worthy weapons and armor, fit for royalty. After getting all the new gear and stuff unloaded, Vikrov ended up throwing a party to celebrate our great victory. Now that's a celebration I can get behind. Perhaps we should create a holiday. Let me know what you guys think, and if you'd like for me to, over our first victory of the Eternal Flame, what should we call it? We would also begin decorating our halls with their fine candle holders and their urns, as well as all of our homes with their nice fur beds, much more comfortable than the wooden and bone ones that we had constructed on our own. Absolutely perfect for some much-needed rest. Trust me, they've really earned it this time. It's not every day that you defeat some of the finest marksmen and toughest knights in all the land. Speaking of which, would you take a look at our little undead army growing stronger every day, not only in numbers, but equipment, as previously mentioned. Each of us now wielding some type of bladed weapon, a crossbow, a bow and arrow, or a rifle, or even in some cases, one of each. Starting to feel like we have too many weapons and not enough soldiers. More on that in a moment. For now, we have to prioritize our defenses. No doubt the Queen will be hearing of our little attack very soon, if she hasn't already. We need to make sure that we are ready. An invasion by the Flame is not only inevitable, but it is imminent and ever-present. Especially since Moincow never returned back home, the Queen will be sending her very best. And we need to ensure that when she does, we're ready, not only in terms of defenses, numbers, training, and equipment, but also in our own necromancy powers. It's time that we begin studying the crystal. Now unlock the study of the forbidden knowledge of necromancy. A small step, but one that is going to be quite crucial to our formation of a proper army, and thus a proper kingdom. Until next time, my friends.